Alright, we're going to go through the answers for the Chapter 4 quiz. Make sure you have a pencil or something to correct your quiz. And remember, you can always pause the video and rewatch it if I go too fast. So number 1 says Noah has 5 meters of rope. How many pieces of rope of length half a meter can he cut from it? Draw a diagram to help. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to represent the 5 meters he has on this tape diagram here. So I'm going to put in 4 lines. So now I'm looking at this as being the 5 meters. So if he's going to cut this rope into lengths of a half a meter, I'm going to split each of the meters here into half. So just split them in 2. Okay, now I should be able to look at that and figure out each one of these is a piece of rope. So he would have how many? So go ahead and count them up. And there should be 10. Another way to do it would be, well, we just made each one into 2 sections, so 5 times 2 is 10. Okay, number 2, Jada made 6 cups of blueberry jam and divided the jam equally among 4 containers. So how much jam went in each container? Circle your answer and draw a diagram to help you. So this kind of diagram that I'm going to draw would just be showing like 4 containers. So I'm just going to draw 4 rectangles there to stand for my 4 containers. Okay, so if she has a total of 6 cups in all these, I have to see how it's divided up. Okay, well, I know there's only 4 containers, so there has to be at least 1 cup per container. I know if I tried putting 2, that'd be 2, 4, 6, 8, and that'd be too many. So I know I'm going to have a fraction. So since I see those are in there now, I know I have a total of 4. So I still need 2 more, and I need to split 2 amongst 4 containers. So I'd be thinking about doing 2 divided by 4, and somehow you got to figure out, maybe guessing and checking, that if I put a half a cup in each one, okay, those 2 halves would add up to be 1. So if I add a half to the other 2 containers, those 2 will be 1. Okay, and those account for the 2 I needed. So I should see there that 1.5 cups per container. 4 containers would give me 6 cups. Alright, moving on. So for number 3, you had to select all the expressions that are greater than 1. So we haven't spent a ton of time using the algorithm for dividing. So the way we've really looked at these is thinking about division. If I were to, like for letter A, it says 5 divided by 9/10. So if we were to think about division, and if we want an answer that's greater than 1, things you would think about would be, well, what if I divided 5 by 5? My answer is going to be exactly 1. So if I divide 5 by, let's say, 1, my answer is going to be 5. And if I divide 5 by something greater than 5, let's say 10, I get 5/10, 0.5. So we have talked about there's kind of like a rule when I look at my divisor and dividend. Okay, here's my dividend. When that's a large number and our divisor is a small number, kind of like this example here, you're always going to get a answer greater than 1, such as we got 5 there. So I know this one, I have a large number divided by a small number, it should be an answer greater than 1. Okay, this next one, I have a fraction divided by a large number like 6. Well, that's going to be a answer less than 1. Okay, look at the third one, 4/5 divided by 3/7. Okay, you might want to think about the fractions there a little bit. Okay, 4/5 is like 8/10. Okay, and I look at 3/7 and I know, well, that has to be less than a half, because 3 is less than half of 7. So you could probably think about that as being a large dividend divided by a small divisor. So that's not going to be greater than 1. Okay, on D, we have 2 3/5 divided by 1 and 3/5. So I have a large number divided by a small number. Well, that's going to be greater than 1. Okay, on this last one, okay, they're both fifths. So I have a small 12/5 divided by a larger 13/5. So that's not going to be greater than 1. Okay, so I should have A, forgot to circle C, and D. For number 4, Jada has read 3/5 of a book. She has read 75 pages so far. How many pages in the whole book. Circle your answer. So one way I would think about this would be, if I thought about a tape diagram, I'm going to show fifths. Okay, so right there is my 3/5, and that stands for 75 pages. So stop and see if you could figure out how many pages go in each fifth. I have 3 of them there. Okay, so if you're continuing the video, hopefully you could find that 25 pages go in each fifth, because that total up to our 75. And if I want to find out in the whole book, I'm going to add 25 2 more times, so doing 75 plus 50, giving my answer of 125 pages, or D. So for number 5, a recipe for cookies calls for 2/3 of a cup of sugar per batch. Elena used 5 1/3 cups of sugar to make multiple batches of cookies. How many batches did she make? So on this bar diagram, this is going to help us see how we do this. I'm going to represent the 5 1/3 here. And since it goes up to 6, I'm going to make sure I split this last one into thirds. Okay, and I need to realize I'm only going to think about my total amount of sugar going to that mark there, because that is 5 1/3. So I'm also, since I'm going to have to see how many 2/3, I'm going to have to split up each into thirds. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and figure out how many groups of 2/3 are in here, which means I circle 2 at a time. Uh-oh, have an error there. Okay, so if you do it correctly, there should not be anything left over. If you're wondering why I stopped, it's because we are looking at 5 1/3 cups used, and we're going to stop at that 5 1/3 mark here. We're not going to go all the way to 6, so I just count now how many groups there are, and there should be 8 batches. Okay, next part, write a division equation that represents the question, how many 3/8 are in 5/4? So I'm going to see how many 3/8 fit into 5/4. That means I'm going to take 5/4 and divide it by 3/8. Since we don't know the answer, we're just going to leave it as a question mark. So for my multiplication equation, okay, how many 3/8 are in 5/4? Okay, the way I think about that is my question mark is going to be for the how many, and it's how many times 3/8 are in, kind of is saying equals. So it's going to be question mark times 3/8 equals 5/4. Okay, so there's our multiplication equation. For number 8, we have Tyler used 10 gallons of paint to paint 5/7 of a fence. How many gallons will it take to paint the whole fence? So on this one, it asks you to write a multiplication or division equation, and you could start with that or you could come back to it. So when you think about the equation there, one thing you might look at would be, if I have 10 gallons of paint, and that's used to paint 5/7, I could do 10 divided by 5/7, and that's equal to our question mark. Or if I wanted to write the multiplication equation, I would think, what times 5/7 is equal to 10? And that question mark is going to be, what is the total gallons for the whole fence? Okay, so for the drawing, which is equally as important here, what I would start by doing is showing the 5/7 of a fence. So put 6 lines in there, should have 7 sections. So I'm going to draw a mark here to my 5/7, and we're thinking that that's how much of the fence has been painted so far. Okay, and he's used 10 gallons of paint, so I'm going to write the 10 above that. So if I look at this tape diagram, I want to think, okay, how much paint would be in each of these sections, okay? I count 5 of them, so maybe pause the video and see if you can do it. Okay, if you're still watching here, since we have 10 gallons of paint in 5 sections, if I do 10 divided by 5, That gives me 2. And that means there's 2 gallons of paint per section, or per 1/5. So I want the answer to how many gallons it would take to paint the whole fence. So I'm just going to add 2 more per 1/5. So it's going to be like 10 plus 4, and that gives me 14. Okay, so that's one way to draw the tape diagram. In my mind, that'd be the easier of the 2 ways you could do it. So that's the way I showed there. Okay, moving on. Last problem here from this section. It says Claire's painting some doors that are all the same size. She uses 2 liters of paint to cover 1 3/5 doors. So how many liters of paint are needed for 1 door? So really you have to start with what we're given, and that's 2 liters of paint to cover 1 3/5 doors. Okay, so the way I would think about drawing this would be to represent the tape diagram for doors, and then we'll use that to figure out how much paint. So what I'm going to think about is that's going to be 1 door, and that's going to be 2 doors. And I'm going to start by showing the 1 3/5. So I'm going to split each one into fifths, and just put 4 lines. Okay, I'm going to draw an arrow to that one there, because that is my 1 3/5 doors. So what we know is, for painting that 1 3/5 doors, she used 2 gallons of paint. So above that, I'm going to write 2. So to help us find out how much would be needed for 1 door, which is this pink line now, I'm going to think about how many sections do I have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So it's kind of like saying she painted 8/5, and that took 2 gallons of paint. So really the vision problem you're going to think about there would be, can I do 2 divided by 8? Okay, and you kind of have to think about fractions and how they relate to each other, and you might understand that if I put 1/4 in each section, zoom in here, if I put a 1/4 in each one of these, that'll get me up to 2, because there are 8 of them. So those right there, that's 1 gallon of paint. Okay, I keep counting up by 4ths. Okay, I have 4 more there, and that's my other gallon of paint. So what I want is how many gallons for 1 door, which was this pink mark here. Okay, and if I look, I just count. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sections. Each section has 1/4 in it. So we have 1 1/4. Okay, I'm just adding up the fourths that are there. So there's my answer. Have that online, and it is gallons. Alright, for the spiral review, what is 86% written as a decimal? Okay, you're just moving the decimal 2 places. So that should be C. Okay, on this one, what is 55 thousandths as a percent? Just moving the decimal 2 places. And what is 1/20th? So as a decimal, I'm going to write that as a denominator out of 100. So multiply by 5. I get 5/100ths, and that is letter A. Okay, so hopefully this helps you, and you can use this to make some corrections on your quiz.